of ancient races, hidden from public view, and all to keep the Church's view of the world foremost in the historical records, while denying our right to gain a glimpse of our true history. I do not think the destruction of books from the ancient world was, as we are told. More likely, no power-hungry organisation would lose the chance of gaining new knowledge rather than destroy it. Which is why I firmly believe they faked the death of these books so no one would bother looking for them after the event. As we stand at the gates of Rome, we are left wondering why the world refuses to place these historical pirates on trial for crimes against history, and thus against humanity itself. Here we sit, trying to guess what the contents are, while the few hold the keys to our past. One can only speculate that when Philip of France and the Church wiped out the Cathars and the Templars, what treasures they stole, and just how large was the Templar library that seems to have been completely removed from the historical records itself. Where are the original land deeds that show true ownership now sitting in the hands of monarchs and the Church? And who has the right to withhold our past for the sake of fake history which does nothing but support the legend created by perpetrators of that fabricated history? The loss of knowledge throughout the ages is a travesty of incalculable proportions, and it saddens me to know that we have lost so much to dogma. Now that we know who we are dealing with, now that we know in many respects why all this deception is wrought upon us, I think it is we who should look to ourselves for guidance, and since it will never come from those we are told to seek guidance from. We cannot change the past, and yet in these present moments I think we can make a positive difference and make the future that much better. Our children deserve so much more than this. Heck, so do we. But again, ours, I believe, is the task to make changes according to what we wish to see, not what we have. At some point later this year, I intend to start putting the idea of alternative education into a solid, practical form, and with it the truth about our past as much as we can fathom. If you, like me, believe our children deserve the best we can give them, the best we can teach them, and the morals to know good from evil, then it will be worth the effort. I hope you have found this episode of interest, and please share with others, since in that way you will also be helping to make that change. Question everything, believe nothing, and stay curious. See you on the other side.
Shores of the Dead Sea at the southern end of the Jordan Valley. Here, 50 years ago, in a labyrinth of ravines, priceless ancient manuscripts were discovered in a cave. The Dead Sea Scrolls were among the most important archaeological finds of the 20th century. Written around the time of Jesus, they hold precious secrets about early Judaism and the birth of Christianity. For much of their existence, war has raged around the Dead Sea Scrolls, often casting them as hostages to fortune. Over time, more scrolls have been unearthed by archaeologists. Still others, reached first by profiteers, have surfaced in Middle Eastern bazaars. Even as experts use new technology to unlock their profound meaning, the stakes grow higher, as potentially key fragments are held for ransom in the shady world of scroll traders.
After the 6-Day War, and then we excavated the cave and we found 6 documents from the Bar Kokhba period, 1 document which is earlier from the Persian period in the same cave. In 93 we found 30 documents lying outside the cave. So it happened to me twice, once in 86 and another time in 93, where I had found documents in the Judean desert.
a fuller picture of Qumran, with its ritual pools and waterways, is being built up. Can this knowledge help to explain what happened to this community? Why did the Qumranites die out when Christianity and Rabbinical Judaism, who shared many of the same beliefs, are still active today? The
light, for the light is good. And when night comes, you shall study for 1/3 of the darkness.
Nothing, it would seem, in those activities to indicate their downfall. For 200 years, this community lived out its idealistic lifestyle, convinced as they wrote and copied their scrolls, they were preparing the way for their God. Maybe a clue to their downfall is to be found in their later writings. As the community approached its end, their writings began to take on a more warlike tone.
They look forward to a final battle in which the forces of light would defeat the forces of darkness. They're very similar to Christianity. Christianity also in the book of Revelations has a description of the final defeat of the forces of evil by the victorious angel Michael.
As they lived out their ritually pure lives, they waited for leaders who would precipitate a universal battle, marking the end of time.
My own feeling about this group is kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I have tremendous respect for many of their teachings, for their devotion, for the beautiful compositions that they produced, the willingness to sacrifice anything for what they understood as God's way of life. On the other hand, there are really some teachings that are hard to agree with. They believe that in the end of days, they themselves, and all those who would associate with them by coming to see the light, basically, by realizing who is right in all this, would be saved. Everybody else, Jews and non-Jews, would die.
The sad end to this sect didn't go according to plan. In 68 AD, when the Roman expeditionary force under Vespasian camped nearby on their way to put down a Jewish revolt in Jerusalem, they encountered the Qumranites. Hastily hiding their precious scrolls in nearby caves, they might have followed the plans from their own war scroll for a final battle. Did the Qumranites throw themselves onto Roman swords, confident that angel warriors would be at their side? To date, we don't know. They were either killed or fled. Only a layer of ash and a few Roman sandal nails tell of the end of a sect that had become self-obsessed and warlike. Soon, the Romans were to destroy the temple in Jerusalem, hurling its giant stone blocks to the street below, and scattering the Jews to the corners of the earth. Is there more to tell of the sad story of the Qumran community? Jim Charlesworth believes there is. In his endless search for fragments of the scrolls, he's now back in America. This time, he's in luck, and in his own backyard. Charlesworth knows that just 20 minutes west of New York City, in Teaneck, New Jersey, there are scrolls, parts of which are illegible. He is hoping to persuade the Syrian Orthodox Cathedral of St. Mark to allow some of their partly decomposed fragments to be subjected to new digital analysis. It's just possible that hidden text could be revealed. The fragments were brought here in 1948 by Athanasius Samuel, Jerusalem's Syrian Orthodox Archbishop at the time. His scroll fragments are now in the care of Reverend John Mino.
This is just a beautiful liturgical scroll.
This is one of the fragments that His Eminence did keep, and he wished to be maintained by the church here.
Let me see the other fragment.
Certainly. There is a second fragment here, Jim, that you may want to take a look at.
That's beautiful. This writing is so clear, but I'm very curious if we can get some readings into this area where the leather has turned to liquefaction, where the leather collapses because of the absorption of liquid. And of course we can't see anything in here now with the naked eye, but it will be very exciting if we can get some readings there.
Having secured the church's agreement, these ancient scrolls are on their way to an encounter with the cutting edge of technology. In upstate New York, the Rochester Institute of Technology has teamed up with Xerox Laboratories to resurrect the writings of the Qumran people. The latest digital equipment is being used by high-tech scroll hunters. Doctors Roger Easton and Robert Johnston of the Institute of Technology and Dr. Keith Knox of Xerox have been developing a new image processing technique. They believe it will reveal writing on scrolls that hasn't been seen for 2,000 years.
Monochrome separation took the
Until now, the technique has been tested only on photographs.
Do you want to bring back different images again? You mean,
Using technology designed for the space program, each fragment is filmed through a range of filters. The image will then be rebuilt electronically.
Okay, 160.
II filter in place.
30.
See how that.
Yes.
Ready?
On this fragment that we've never seen writing before.
that better?
Oh my! Holy cow!
Look at that.
Unbelievable!
There you go. There, Jim. There you go. There's some data.
Unbelievable! Unbelievable! Look at those! Look at that coming out!
Between the righteous and the wicked, the annihilation of our tormentors.
Virtually, we discovered another scroll here. Noise.
These are not obvious extracts from the Hebrew
But
Bible.
the other comes out so clearly.
The last line tantalizes.
For that is why you created us.
Why indeed? The all-important answer is missing.
BCE.
Charlesworth decides to look at a second scrap with handwriting suggesting that it was written by the same person. The phrase, "the produce of the earth," can just be made out. But is there anything legible in the decomposed area of that fragment?
Let's see what we have. Oh my goodness!
Look at that.
Oh look, we can get something in here now.
Here are new phrases.
The turn of the year, as heavy dew upon.
Taking the infrared scrap from the first image and putting it in front of the two scraps of the second reconstitutes what appears to be a hymn for Harvest Festival. The hymn can now be put together.
Well, now we have these new readings. We really have very interesting text that we can read for the first time.
The festival of our peace. The fruit became plump, due to the heavens and the produce of the earth for living things. So we give thanks to your name forever.
The scrap that contained the enigmatic words, "That is why you created us," now is reunited with its fuller phrase to tell us why the Qumranites believed they had been created.
Blessed is the Lord who causes us to rejoice, for that is why you created us.
Created to rejoice with God.
For these people, praising the Lord was the whole purpose of creation. And of course, if we can't understand that, we can't understand Judaism at all.
It's like we've discovered a new document, or it's like discovering a new manuscript, or another Dead Sea Scroll has been found. Now we can understand Jesus' language in terms of its own time, rather than saying, I'll tell you what it means, and make it up as we go along. We cannot make it up anymore.
Now, this is fascinating because this little fragment allows us to read then the whole passage here, which goes, "And you renewed our covenant by a vision of glory and the words of your Holy Spirit." So here we've got in one phrase two important ideas shared between the Dead Sea Scrolls and the New Testament. A new or renewed covenant and the Holy Spirit.
These are two more Qumranite concepts that have found their way into Christianity.
It's a very important way of exploring a dark period in history. The Dead Sea Scrolls then are like the giant flashlight that shines into a lost corridor of history.
It seems now science is becoming the partner of religion rather than its archenemy, bathing the Bible in a new light of understanding. Today, scientists can even determine the DNA of the individual sheep and goat skins from which the scrolls were made to help group and match the fragments together. Studying the scrolls now shows the fluidity of different variations of Judaism, a process just as active today and a way of ensuring that Judaism moves with the times.
You could say that the scrolls send us a message across the 2 millennia. That message for us today, I think, is to understand the extent to which the variegated nature of Judaism in that period gave birth, on the one hand, to Rabbinic Judaism, but on the other hand, through a whole variety of transmogrifications and changes and all this, to Christianity as well, which teaches that Christianity has its roots in Judaism and therefore comes to tell us the importance of the kinds of relations between the two groups that we would hope would be there for the future.
And for those who believe there is more to be discovered, that more scrolls are to be found, the search continues.
There is good reason to continue to look. And I'm sure that Cave 12 will be found. I really hope that I will take part in this adventure.
What about it? Am I going to continue to look for scrolls and fragments of scrolls? Absolutely. So I shall keep looking as long as I live, because I've said it repeatedly, I think the great discoveries are yet to be made.
Are you a book lover? Certainly, a lot of people in the world enjoy reading books, and some of them became classics that almost everyone in the world knows. Books inform, entertain, and even provoke thought. But several authors throughout history have made it their mission to puzzle anyone that reads their work. From the Red Book to a 1,500-year-old Bible, here are the 15 most mysterious books written in history. Number 15. The Red Book by Carl Jung. If you're into psychology, then you're probably already familiar with Carl Gustav Jung. Carl Jung, together with Sigmund Freud, are two of the most prominent psychoanalysts that we still recognize to this day. He's actually the one that developed the concept and theory of extroversion and introversion, and his theories have become the basis of many psychological concepts we know. So what's so special about the Red Book he's written? Does it contain secrets about the human mind? Not really. What made the Red Book so mysterious is that Carl Jung's family hid it for 80 years, and it contained some of the most personal thoughts of the Swiss psychiatrist. This red leather-bound book contained Jung's exploration of himself. It has some psychedelic drawings that only he could interpret. Unlike most of his work, the Red Book contained hypnagogic, chaotic, and compulsively written texts. As one of the most prominent psychiatrists at the time, Jung knew that if anyone read the contents of the Red Book, his reputation and career could be ruined. And so, it was never published, even after his death. His family then kept the book in a bank vault in Switzerland before it was finally revealed to the public. The book was displayed in the Rubin Museum of Art in New York, and today you can grab a copy of the book, although you have to shell out a couple $100. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now. Number 14. Codex Seraphonianus. One of the reasons why books are amazing is that one single book can introduce you to a whole other world or universe. Depending on the genre, you might be able to know of a world where there are wizards, a dystopian place, or even, I don't know, a talking lion. But while world building is extremely important, that doesn't mean you can just write anything. Many people seem to think that the author of Codex Seraphonianus drew the most random things in the book. Some even theorize that the Codex is a guide about things on an extraterrestrial planet. I mean, just take a look at these photos and see if you can make sense of them. Here you can see a weird-looking establishment that looks straight out of a video game. Here you have a weird red circle where ladybugs are coming out. And on this page, you have the photo of a hideous animal tied to a stove that's cooking some sunny-side-up eggs. Let's not forget about the weird plants and the weird-looking people with some pretty creative outfits that we've never seen before. This book was first published in 1981, and ever since it has caught the attention of people around the world. From these images alone, it isn't really surprising, but its strangeness doesn't end with the illustrations inside. Even the alphabet used in this book is quite indescribable, and it's also indecipherable. Needless to say, this book has many artists, philosophers, and linguists scratching their heads while trying to unravel the meanings of the illustrations and texts. Number 13. Rohan's Codex. This 448-page manuscript that has been baffling scholars and historians ever since its discovery is known as the Rohan's Codex. This book was named after a city in Hungary where the book was kept until it was donated to the Academy in 1838. Despite being an illustrated manuscript, no one could decipher what the texts say, and the author of this book is also unknown. Around 800 symbols are written in this book, which is immensely greater than the normal number you'd find in any known alphabet today. Another strange detail is that there's barely any repetition in the symbols used in this book. It has led many to think that perhaps the symbols used here aren't an alphabet, but instead a syllabary or logographic in nature. Looking at the illustrations alone also won't give you any clue as to what exactly the book is about. A few illustrations seem to portray religious and military scenes, and many believe that this book depicts a world where Christians, pagans, and Muslims coexist. However, this claim was never confirmed, and neither were any of the other theories about this book's contents. Throughout the years, many scholars tried to crack the confusing and cryptic messages in this book. Those that claimed to have cracked the code all had inconsistencies in their methods. With a lack of answers, many became inclined to believe that perhaps the Rohan's Codex is just a hoax created sometime in the 16th to 17th centuries. Number 12. Voynich Manuscript. The Voynich Manuscript is one of the most well-known books in history, but it's not because of the usual reason. This book has captured the curiosity of scholars and cryptologists for centuries, and it continues to baffle internet sleuths to this day. The Voynich Manuscript is a book written in a language that we haven't decoded yet. This 600-year-old book has about 240 pages, and it contains loopy text with illustrations of women, astrological symbols, and strange plants. Some of these vellum pages even contain dragons, castles, and floating heads. The book was believed to have been stored in Prague for a while, and in 1639, a person named Bargius described the book as a piece of writing in unknown characters, and like a riddle by the Sphinx. The historical records of this book end in around 1670, and records of the book pick up in 1912 when the eccentric book dealer Wilfrid Michael Voynich bought the manuscript. Ever since, the manuscript has been attributed to almost everyone from ancient civilizations to the Middle Ages to Leonardo da Vinci, and of course, to aliens. Every attempt made to crack the meaning of this book has been a fail. All the attempts have had flaws and criticisms. Just like the Rohan's Codex, this led many to believe that perhaps the Voynich manuscript is just a hoax created by someone to confuse everyone that views it. Number 11. Book of Soiga. Also known as the Book That Kills, or Eldaria, the Book of Soiga is an almost 200-page manuscript written in Latin. This book was said to have been made at the beginning of the 16th century. Queen Elizabeth I's advisor, mathematician, astronomer, and astrologer John Dee was said to own a copy of the Book of Soiga, and he was one of the many that tried to decipher the secrets of this book. John Dee was unsuccessful in his attempts, and the 197-page manuscript is still considered a mystery to this day. Some theorize that the book was created when Adam was in heaven, and only an archangel could understand the book. This mysterious book intrigued people all over the world, but most especially those that are interested in the occult. Researchers, historians, and cryptologists also believe that just like the other mystical books, the Book of Soiga would reveal the remaining secrets of mankind. One leading theory that we accept today is that the Book of Soiga is a manuscript filled with instructions for magical rituals, incantations, as well as guides for astrology and demonology. Despite being deciphered, a lot of mysteries in this book remain. Number 10. Popol Vuh. This is the Popol Vuh, which translates to Book of the People. It is a book that tells the mythology and history of the K'iche' people, one of the Mayan people that lived in Guatemala and several Mexican states. This book was written back in the mid-1500s, and the book discusses how humans and animals came to be. According to its creation story, there was only sky and sea in the beginning, until the sole creator formed the earth. Now you're probably thinking that this is just like most creation stories. And you're right, but in this book, the first creatures to walk the earth were animals. Then, the creator made mudmen, then wooden men, both of which didn't really work out. And later on, he decided to make people out of corn. When he succeeded, the god then created women as the men he created slept. Number 9. Codex Gigas. The Codex Gigas literally translates to the giant book, and it's the largest medieval manuscript in the world. Unfortunately, little is known about this book. Codex Gigas, also known as the Devil's Bible, has a staggering length of 36 inches, a width of about 20 inches, and a thickness of about 8 inches. Unlike the books that you can freely carry, the Codex Gigas weighs 165 pounds. It's not really surprising considering it's made of about 300 layers of vellum made from the skin of 160 donkeys. Let me tell you, that's a lot. So if you were to guess how long it took for the author to finish writing and illustrating the contents of this enormous book, how long would you have guessed? A few months? A year? Or several years? It's only expected that it took a long time before this book was completed. And yet, according to historians, the Devil's Book was completed in just a few hours. A monk at the Benedictine monastery of Podlazice in the Czech Republic was the author of this gigantic book. One day, the monk was sentenced to prison and was set to be walled to death the next day. Desperate and afraid, the monk pleaded for his life to be spared. In exchange for freedom, he told the monastery that he would write a book that contained all human knowledge by the next morning. And knowing that this is an impossible feat, the monastery agreed. Everyone thought that the monk's death was guaranteed. And yet the next morning, they all saw the completed Codex Gigas. At the time, it had more than 620 pages. But as years passed by, only 310 pages remain intact today. As promised, the monastery granted the monk his freedom, and on the first page of the book, there was even an inscription about it being pledged to the monastery in Sedlec. The Codex Gigas contains the Christian Bible, several Jewish texts, an encyclopedia by Saint Isidore of Seville, and the Chronicles of Bohemia. It also contains texts about medical practices, penitence, rituals, and exorcisms. But the highlight of the book is the illustration of the devil himself. This was drawn by the monk to honor the one that helped him accomplish the entire book in just a few hours. It's easy to believe that this is all just a story to push the book further into greatness. But you see, modern analysis suggests that it's indeed true. This entire book was written by one individual alone, and the handwriting suggests that it was done in just one sitting. Could it be that this book was created by the devil himself? Perhaps we'll never know. Number 8. The Urantia Book. Written by an anonymous author, the Urantia Book, also called the Urantia Papers, is a spiritual, philosophical, and religious book that was said to have originated in Chicago between 1924 and 1955. The reason why it garnered so much attention is the fact that its contents are like that of the Bible, except you get sci-fi and a sprinkle of Justinian legal code mixed in. If you plan to check this book out, then get ready for extensive reading, because this book has over 2,000 pages. This book explains how this planet began, its purpose, and how it's to be fulfilled. It also talks extensively about the life and teachings of Jesus. This part takes up about 775 pages of the entire book. It talks about his childhood, teenage years, family life, public ministry, and even his death and resurrection. It's certainly impressive how one could write 2,000 pages. According to the organization of Urantia, the book doesn't have an author. Instead, the angels communicated all of its contents to an anonymous source, and all they did was inscribe it. This book is certainly a bit controversial. Some people view it as a revelation from the heavens, while some only see it as a piece of literature. I can't really confirm whether this book is just the product of human effort or the words of a holy entity, so I'll let you be the judge. Number 7. Ripley's Scroll. The Philosopher's Stone is an alchemist substance that was said to be able to turn base metals into precious ones like gold and silver. It's also believed that the Philosopher's Stone can produce the elixir of life. Ripley's Scroll is filled with the secrets of alchemy. It was mysterious, fantastical, and extremely shrouded in secrecy. It was practiced from at least the 1st century until the 18th century. This scroll contains dissolving, distilling, and coagulating substances to use for creating precious stones or for healing. All of the illustrations are pretty fascinating, but they're also pretty hard to interpret as well. To this day, many are still amazed by these scrolls that Ripley made himself. Number 6. Sarajevo Haggadah. The Sarajevo Haggadah is owned by the National Museum of Bosnia and Herzegovina. It's an illustrated manuscript, and it's one of the oldest Sephardic Haggadahs in the world, originating in Barcelona around 1350. Some even say that the Sarajevo Haggadah is actually an indestructible book. You see, it survived many close calls with destruction. During World War II, people risked their lives to hide these from the Nazis and Ustashi. The book ended up getting passed to different people. When the Bosnian War raged in 1992, this manuscript survived a museum break-in. In fact, when people found it, it was already on the floor along with many other items that the thieves believed weren't valuable. But these aren't the only situations that Sarajevo survived. It survived destruction once again when the bank it was stored in was attacked during the siege of Sarajevo by Serb forces. Of course, people went to great lengths to protect the Sarajevo Haggadah, but it seems that throughout history, it also protected itself. Number 5. The Smithfield Decretals. This is the Smithfield Decretals, and for many years, people have been curious about the weird doodles in this medieval manuscript. But what exactly are the Smithfield Decretals? It's basically a copy of the Decretals of Pope Gregory IX with a gloss by Bernard of Parma. Originally, the Decretal is a collection of works of canon law that was made in 1230 by Saint Raymond of Peñafort under Pope Gregory IX's orders. So why exactly does it have these weird drawings that don't really have any connection to the texts? Apparently, the illustrations were added by a group of illustrators that were commissioned by an anonymous person in eastern England. At the time it was done, drolleries were the trend in England. And so the result were these bizarre, absurd, and humorous marginal illustrations in the scroll. I guess the only mystery here is why would someone commission illustrators to draw on such an important document? Number 4. Book from a 300-year-old shipwreck. They say that this book found in a 327-year-old shipwreck may change how we understand the history of humankind. Archangel Raphael was a German trade ship that sank near Viborgen in 1724. Now recently, a few artifacts have been recovered from this wreck, and among the things they recovered is this book. The last thing you'd expect to recover from the ocean is a book made out of materials that easily disappear in water, and yet, this book survived being submerged in water for hundreds of years. This ancient book is quite strange, and it was believed to be written in the German language. While you can still read a few texts in the book, the title of the book itself couldn't be read anymore, but you can still make out the beginning of the title, which reads, "The Life Story of," and that's where the decipherable text ends. However, based on the interesting cover of the book, which shows a photo of a man and a woman, historians believe that the real title of this book may have been The Life Story of Mankind. Many believe that this book is an ancient Bible that tells more about the history of mankind. Number 3. Nostradamus Les Prophéties. Do you believe that some people have the ability to foresee the future? Well, millions of people believe that a person that lived in the 1500s predicted many of the things that occurred years after his death. Nostradamus is considered to be a person that successfully foretold many of the things that actually occurred in the future. It was said that he successfully predicted the Great Fire of London, the coming of Adolf Hitler, the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bomb, and even the assassination of Kennedy. It was even said that he predicted the French Revolution. He even said something about plague and captivity in his prophecies. But one could argue that all of the accurate predictions he made were just mere coincidences. But who exactly is Nostradamus? He was a French astrologer and physician who skyrocketed to fame through his prophecies. This earned him a lot of followers at the time who stayed loyal to him to his death. One of his most controversial works is the book titled The Prophecies, which he published in 1555. According to the book, the world is destined to end in the year 3797. And to be honest, no one on Earth right now will live to see if his prediction was true or not. I know that the possibility that Nostradamus had predicted the future is quite exciting, but I think I would prefer it if his predictions aren't true. After all, he also predicted a zombie apocalypse. He said, "Not far from the age of the great millennium, when the dead will come out of their graves." So does that mean that we have something to look forward to in the next few years? We'll just have to wait and see. Number 2. The Cavern of Death. The Cavern of Death is basically like a normal book you can pick up at the local bookstore. It's about the main character's journey through the Black Forest and coming back home to see his friend and true love, Lady Constance. However, when the protagonist comes back to his hometown, he learns that he has competitors for Constance's love. So what's mysterious about this book? You see, it has no known author, and it's remained a book anonymously written throughout the years. To this day, no one has any idea as to who wrote this Gothic classic book. Number 1. 1500-year-old Bible. Whether you're religious or not, you probably know about the Bible. And regardless of your religion, you probably know a few facts about it. Throughout the whole history of mankind, religion has been the center of debate. And recently, we discovered a 1500-year-old Bible that could possibly rewrite what we already know about Christianity. This Bible was found in Turkey in 2000, and it apparently contains the Gospel of Barnabas, who was a disciple of Christ. Now, what makes this Bible mysterious and controversial is that in its text, it claims that Jesus wasn't really crucified. Instead, Judas Iscariot was crucified. In this version, Jesus ascended to heaven alive and well. Furthermore, the Bible also claims that Jesus wasn't the Son of God, but simply a prophet who passed and spread the Word of God. However, just because something is ancient, we can't really take it as the truth. After all, just like present times, many hoaxes and fakes have been created hundreds to thousands of years ago. However, if the contents of this Bible really are true, it would surely shake up the foundations of Christianity. So which of these books fascinate you the most? And for the book lovers out there, I want you to share the most mysterious book you've ever read. Comment your thoughts and answers down below. Also, check out our other cool stuff showing up on the screen right now. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everybody.
Well, why have I named this film the Alien Kabbalah? Well, for many reasons. First of all, I'd like to go back to New York City in the year 1918. And Aleister Crowley, who was a full-time occultist and worked as a part-time spy for Her Majesty's Intelligence Services, conducted a series of magical rituals in New York City in 1918 called the Alum Lantra workings. And this was a series of very, very complicated magical rituals designed to open up a psychic telepathic portal to other dimensions in other parts of the cosmos. And what Aleister Crowley wanted to do is he wanted to contact psychically, telepathically, the intelligence of alien beings. And in actual fact, one of these alien beings came through. Aleister Crowley gave it a name. He called the entity Lam. Now, in Tibetan tradition, Lam is a path, and a lama is somebody that follows the path to enlightenment. And Crowley referred to Lam, this name, as the name of the race rather than the actual individual being that came through. And Aleister Crowley sketched the being as it projected itself into his mind's eye. And it's fascinating because the sketch that Aleister Crowley did really does resemble what many eyewitnesses have reported of so-called grey aliens. These are usually beings that have no facial hair, no bodily hair. They have enlarged skulls, and they have very unmoving, small, sort of slit-like mouths. And this is exactly what this sketch that Crowley did looked like. And in actual fact, Professor John Mack of Harvard University, who was recently run down by a motor car while he was visiting a university in England. Professor John Mack, while he was at Harvard, did a research project, and he statistically projected that there were literally millions of people in America that claimed that they had had contact with these grey-type beings. Now, conventional scientists, even though they may accept that the universe is teeming with planets that may have intelligent life forms on them, many of these scientists say, well, these planets are so far away that it's very unlikely that any being will visit us here on planet Earth, just simply because the practicalities of travelling enormous distances in space would sort of separate us naturally from one planetary civilization to another. And it would be very, very rare indeed that we would be visited by an alien being. Well, this does not, of course, preclude the attempt to contact these beings telepathically, and the psychic power or the psychic world which we see written about in ancient texts from the Indian subcontinent, from Sumeria, from ancient Egypt. That's just 3 examples. The astral planes, this invisible realm of spirit, is as vast as the physical universe. So if you believe that it's possible to actually contact spirits of your ancestors and channel communications through a Ouija board or contact spirits in magical ritual, then it should be possible to actually contact the psychic spiritual energy that emanates from entities on other planets. And in actual fact, this idea of being able to contact alien beings psychically, telepathically, constitutes some of the highest secrets of some of the world's most famous magical cults and secret societies. And we see some of these beings being described as secret chiefs. In the case of Theosophy with Madame Blavatsky, she channeled spirits and she called those the secret chiefs, and some of these spirits apparently dwelled upon other planets. We also see it with World International Freemasonry, which is led by a group of what are called loosely the Hidden Masters. Now, in my film The Illuminati, which I made in 2004, it was revealed that one of these Hidden Masters of World International Freemasonry has a name, and he's called Yota, or Yoda, and is meant to be an ideologue, a spiritual entity that guides World International Freemasonry. And this Yota ideologue, or this Yoda entity, whatever you want to call it, is not actually the spirit of a human, but it's the spirit of an alien being.
planet Earth is a super living organism. Since the dawn of time, ancient cultures have understood that every living creature has a spirit, a life force which animates the physical body. Just as every living animal has a spirit, so too does planet Earth. Great scientists such as Sir Isaac Newton and Sir Oliver Lodge recognized the existence of a spiritual domain which surrounds the planet. They called this domain the ether.
There is a vibrational change going on within the Earth's energy field, and this is affecting weather patterns. It's like a shift, and as it shifts, of course, weather being and you only got to see a thunderstorm, you can see that weather is just an obvious expression of energy. So if the Earth's energy field is changing in its vibrational state and making a shift, then it's going to affect the weather. And I think that the projections by the global warming proponents of how things would change are already being shown to be inaccurate in terms of the changes happening much quicker.
In recent times, an evil group of people who communicate with the spirits of Baphomets and demons have been destroying the very spirit of planet Earth. This global network of black magicians, Satanists, Luciferians, and occultists are called the Illuminati. The corporations controlled by the royal, aristocratic, and political elite are spraying chemicals into our sky.
And there is no doubt whatsoever, indeed the authorities have admitted it with patents and what have you, that they have weather-changing technology. You know, the old Native American rain dances and all this stuff, what were they doing? They were performing rituals, dances, sounds that were resonating the energy field, and therefore attempting to bring it into a vibrational state in which it manifests as rain. Now, technologically, the elite in the underground projects have this ability. So, and not only in terms of producing weather, but also earthquakes. If you know where on the Earth to really give a plate a smack, then it's going to move. And if it moves, you've got an earthquake. And when you look at these hurricanes, and I was told when I had my mind-blowing awakening in 1990 that we were going to see tsunamis. To be honest, at that time I'd not even heard the word. I said, what's a tsunami? Oh, it's a tidal wave, massive tidal wave. Well, everyone knows what the tsunami is now. And that we were going to see things like hurricanes on a scale.
The very air which we breathe is being poisoned. Shamans, druids, Sufis, pagans, sadhus,
hey, come here. Hey.
sky watchers
Come here.
have all recognized for thousands of years the spirit of planet Earth is central to mankind's survival.
I want to talk.
This film is about the spiritual life force which is inside all of us and the ether which surrounds our planet. Now, for the first time on film, we explore the evidence of scientists who have studied the nature of spirit and how our spirits, at the time of death of the physical body, reconnect with the larger spirit of planet Earth. Welcome to the secret untold story of the spirit world.
Sewers are all muddied with 1,000 lonely suicides. And a dark wind blows. The government is corrupt. And we're on so many drugs with the radio on and the curtains drawn. We're trapped in the belly of this horrible machine. And the machine is bleeding to death. The sun has fallen down. And the billboards are all leering. And the flags are all dead. At the top of their poles. It went like this. The buildings toppled in on themselves. Mothers clutching babies picked through the rubble and pulled out their hair. The skyline was beautiful on fire. All twisted metal stretching upwards. Everything washed in a thin orange haze. I said, kiss me, you're beautiful. These are truly the last days. You grabbed my hand, and we fell into it. Like a daydream or a fever. "9/11 was a day when 3,000 people had the life force ripped from their physical bodies. It all happened so quickly. No one had prepared for the
In many traditional cultures around the world, family members gather at the bedside and help the spirit of their loved one pass into the spirit world. However, with a violent, unexpected tragedy like 9/11, it is likely that the spirits of those killed would have stayed at ground zero, lost, possibly forever.
When they do their terrorist events to blame on someone else, they are very ritualistic in nature in terms of when they're done, where they're done, and how they're done. So 9/11, I mean 9/11, what do you dial for an emergency in America? 9/11.
Yes.
You find this so often in these events that they engineer.
Did you know that the Madrid train bombs were exploded 911 days after September the 11th, 2001?
Doesn't surprise me, because the thing is that when I started researching this, my bloody jaw was dropping. Not just at give you the perfect symbolic, ritualistic background to the latest horrific event.
Like something out of the Tower Inferno, like a movie.
Now, in your book, Alice in Wonderland and the World Trade Center disaster, you actually point out that those twin towers are symbolic architectural edifices, which I think you compared them to the twin pillars of Freemasonry, Jachin and Boaz. So you've got everything there. You've got like, would you say that it's like a mass ritual, a mass sacrifice?
Yes, that's what wars are, they're mass sacrifices. Yes. You know, this shock and awe in Iraq targets civilians. They want as many dead people as possible. And of course Iraq, the former land of Sumer and Babylon, has enormous significance to these people because they go back to that period and that area of Babylon, etc. In fact, what we're seeing now is global Babylon when you look at the symbolism of Babylon.
Yes.
And for them to kill all those people there, it is a mass ritual sacrifice.
Get away from the flag! Oh, my is out there! My is out there! The whole building, watch the debris come down the street. Don't open the door. Get away from the window. Get away from the window. Don't open the door. Get behind. Oh my God, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my God. Oh my God! You saved my life, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
And what I would say to people is, you know, if you are going to judge what this state of consciousness would do on the basis of what you would do, then you're going to lose the plot from the first, because you have a level of compassion, you have a level of empathy, that's the word, empathy, with people who suffer the consequences of your actions. That empathy is what balances out your behavior towards someone else, because you have empathy with the consequences for them. You remove that empathy, and this controlling consciousness has no empathy, not even with itself, never mind its victims and its targets, because they are as ruthless with each other as they are with the human race. You take away that empathy, and there are no fail-safe mechanisms to block extreme behavior. So, whoa, the people who run America wouldn't kill 3,000 of their own people. What? They'd have a party. You know, this is not about American, what are nothing more to them than humans' perception of cattle.
A situation that started bad just gets worse and worse and worse. The World Trade Center, South Tower, which was hit by a plane and racked by an explosion approximately an hour ago, has totally collapsed.
Well, it was the day after 9/11.
What's good, my nigga?
News channels broadcast photographs, images from the smoke rising from the Twin Towers. And in the smoke, you could see the faces of demons. Now, I gave a lecture in the south of France, and two brothers, Fist, Rudolf Steiner, and I took a look at the photograph of the sculpture by Rudolf Steiner, and I have to say, yes, it's very similar to a couple of these so-called demon smoke faces. And the name of the sculpture was Ahriman. Ahriman is one of the facets of Lucifer. It's part of the Trinity of Satan. And to see these faces in the smoke coming from the towers,
Bro, what are you doing,
made
Beth?
me think we're seeing 3,000 people.
Open that door, you black boy.
To their deaths, burnt to death. 3,000 spirits are being ripped from their physical bodies. If you believe in reincarnation, then that means that there must be some kind of catastrophic shockwave going through the spirit world. And this tragedy is magnified by being broadcast to 1 billion TV screens around the world.
The sheer vast complexity of the spirit world is the same as the immense hugeness of the physical universe. The world of modern physics is dominated by Jewish theorists. Modern physics often put forward theories which have come straight from the pages of the Kabbalah. According to the mystical author Helena Blavatsky, the fabled kingdom of Atlantis was destroyed by groups of magicians who summoned demonic forces, eventually destroying a prehistoric civilization, which, some people believe, had crystal, plasma, electrical, and psychic technologies that eventually were used by the pharaohs of Egypt to build awe-inspiring buildings using giant granite blocks which even today's largest cranes would not be able to lift. According to Helena Blavatsky, the technologies used in Egypt were powered by energy drawn directly from the cosmos and the spirit world. Right now, billions of people are living in ignorance, whilst right before their very eyes, they watch the physical world being manipulated into violence, war, and chaos. Many rulers of the world are members of secret societies who summon demons and devils from the lower planes of the spirit world. The rituals of cults such as the Golden Dawn, World International Freemasonry, and the Knights Templar all originated with the teachings of the Kabbalah. The royal political elite had giant libraries, such as the Beinecke Archive of Rare Books at Yale University, which teach them how to summon forth and command the negative forces of the universe. We live in a democratic dictatorship. It is a dictatorship run by people who perform rituals. It is a dictatorship run by people who privately summon demons. That sounds difficult to believe, but it is the truth. Cuneiform tablets and cylinder seals made in ancient Iraq, the former kingdom of Babylon, tell the story of two extraterrestrial star gods coming to Earth and genetically manipulating mankind. These alien star gods were called Enlil and Enki. Their alien race was called the Anunnaki, which roughly translated means princes of the royal genetic seed. Worship of these alien beings takes many forms, and the royal political elite have built special temples and lodges all over planet Earth, where ceremonies are performed to invoke the spirit of the Anunnaki and other extraterrestrials. This film is about something so obvious that it stares us right in the face, but is never discussed openly. That is, that on every continent of planet Earth, there are giant temples which are aligned to the stars and planets. These temples are actually astronomical calculators, space observatories, and more importantly, they are places devoted to magical ritual. Massive stone temple complexes all over the world, from Cambodia to Mexico, were built for the same reason. These temples were used to summon spirits. The pyramids of Giza are actually astronomical computers, which are no less sophisticated for their time than our computers are for our age. These temples exactly gauge the precise movements of planets, stars, and constellations, so that elaborate magical rituals can be performed at specific times. This film exposes some of the highest secrets of the Kabbalah, Freemasonry, the Knights Templar, and the global network of secret societies loosely described as the Illuminati. These cults have perverted ancient rituals and now summon not just gods or angels, nor even just spirits of their ancestors, but these cults are summoning demons, and some believe they are even summoning the devil himself. The highest secret of the Hebrew Kabbalah, Aleister Crowley's Ordo Templi Orientis, and L. Ron Hubbard's Scientology cults is that magical ritual can be used to contact not only angels and demons, but also the spirits of extraterrestrials who inhabit other parts of the universe.
It's you again!
One of the best sources of information about the spirit world comes from Eastern mystical author Swami Panchadasai. Swami Panchadasai's book, entitled The Astral World, was first printed in 1915. By understanding the spirit world, we can understand the goal of magical ritual performed by the global network of secret societies, witch covens, Freemasons, and Kabbalists. The spirit world is every bit as real as the physical world which we inhabit. Magical ceremonies work like computer programs, repeating the names of spirits in particular orders, just like a computer language is actually a list of commands. These ancient rituals unlock the subconscious mind and open telepathic gateways to the spirit world. sadhus, Sufis, and gurus are Eastern mystics who teach that there are 7 great astral planes in the spirit world. The number 7 has therefore become one of the most important occult numbers. The lowest of these 7 astral planes is the so-called material plane, which is the physical world we live in. The second plane is called the plane of forces and is unlike the other 7 planes, as it contains the forces of nature, such as electricity, heat, light, kinetic energy, gravity, and the atomic forces which Jewish scientists discovered when they split the atom. In 1943, Robert Oppenheimer's team calculated the forces which would be unleashed from splitting a single atom. They became concerned that a global chain reaction would take place, igniting all the hydrogen and gases in the Earth's atmosphere, and thus incinerating the entire planet. Nevertheless, funded by politicians and military officers who are traditionally members of Kabbalistically inspired secret societies, Robert Oppenheimer and his team of mostly Jewish physicists went ahead and exploded the first atomic bomb, which ripped apart the finer atomic forces of nature for the first time, creating a catastrophic shockwave, not just in the physical world, but also in the spirit world. The so-called Cold War created a worldwide psychological war of terror in the minds of every man, woman, and child, threatening to completely annihilate every living creature and even the planet itself in an orgy of atomic destruction.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
The third plane of the spirit world is the so-called astral plane. The word astral is derived from Greek and it refers to the stars. Next is the fourth plane, often described as the mental plane. In addition to these 4 planes, there are 3 higher planes which are extremely difficult to comprehend to anyone who is on the lower 4 planes. Contemplation of these higher astral planes is the goal of many Buddhists. The higher planes are what Christians call heaven. Throughout history, Freemasons, Knights Templars, Satanists, Magi, wizards, shamans, voodoo doctors, Kabbalists, monks, and even popes have engaged in magical ritual in order to contact the spirits of dead people, demons, and the elemental spiritual forces of nature which reside on the astral planes. The spirit world, with its 7 individual astral planes, surround planet Earth, interpenetrating each other like a vast onion, where each layer of the spirit world vibrates at different frequencies. These frequencies correlate to the 7 astral planes of the spirit world and can actually be seen by clairvoyant people. These people have often been described as mediums, prophets, and oracles. One of the most successful prophets in recent times was Dr. Nostradamus, who used powdered nutmeg and other hallucinogenic herbs to aid his visions of the spirit world. In fact, the Holy Bible lists more than 30 hallucinogenic plants which are used in rituals around the world to see into the spirit world.
Swear that you will never speak with anyone other than those who have been initiated about what I will teach you. If you break this oath, you will be killed, not by the Inquisition, but by one of us. Do you understand? I swear. Now, notice how the catch works. You will use it while I'm away. These books. Here is Al-Khasalas' work, the Elixir of Bliss, in his own hand. There. Scriptures of the Kabbalah. Solomon's Key. Many of them had the power to see the future. You must learn how they did that, so you can decipher your dreams. Nothing is accidental. Everything is according to God's law. What is that? It leads to the inner secret in yourself, and there you will see the future. Not me. Partly. I will tell you the exact formula later. You must be very careful. Too much can be poisonous. You have to let your body get used to it slowly. But then, your visions will be clearer. What is that? It's from our friend Leonardo. A machine that drives underwater. And this, an explosion greater than anything we know.
psilocybin mushrooms are common in Northern Europe and were the ritual drug of choice for druids and Nordic shamans. So-called magic mushrooms, henbane, hemlock, belladonna, mandrake, Syrian rue, hashish, fermented honey, and, of course, opium, have all been used to see the spirit world. Mystics living in underground temples in ancient Greece ate fermented honey cakes in order to have visions of spirits. To this day, beehives are a secret symbol of Masonic lodges, which are part of the Bavarian Illuminati. Adam Weishaupt and the leaders of the Bavarian Illuminati ate hashish during rituals, a practice which was popular amongst the Jesuits of the Alumbrados cult in Spain. The effects of hallucinogenic plants, especially plants which contain DMT, dimethyltryptamine, reveal a very fine, transparent lattice which can sometimes be seen actually binding the objects and beings around you into a mesh of reality. This is known as the veil. And it can sometimes be seen shimmering and vibrating like a gossamer dusting over all surfaces. Shamans and magicians who use these hallucinogenic plants during rituals train their third eye, which is a term that refers to the ability to see spirits on the astral planes. The whole of planet Earth is covered with energy, which is known as the ether. This flows across the sky like an invisible weather system. According to Sir Oliver Lodge, one of the pioneer inventors of radio, the ether is actually a spiritual domain, and it interconnects with planets and stars right across the universe. The ether is the unseen, sacred life force which mystics speak of around the world. Mystics speak of around the world. Modern science ignorantly teaches that the heart is merely a pump. However, miles of bookshelves around the world are filled with literature and occult research which proves that the heart is actually an emotional organ which beats faster with excitement or sexual attraction or when under stress. Many forms of physical exercise have been developed which enable one to counterbalance the extremes of emotion and train the heart to respond in a more balanced and safe way to emotional problems and harrowing experiences. These physical exercises are usually referred to as yoga. Aleister Crowley was a devotee of yoga, as any serious magician must be, for it brings into active fusion the important trinity of mind, body, and spirit. Gaining full command over the activity of the heart is a gateway to unlocking different forms of consciousness. To merely describe the heart as a pump ignores the important role the heart plays in allowing us to meditate and connect with the spirits in the spirit world. Blood is the carrier medium for the life force. The life force itself goes under many different names in many different cultures around the world. The most popular names for the life force in the Indian subcontinent are Qi or Prana. Chinese medicine teaches that the Qi life force is made stronger by fresh oxygen. This is why tree groves, rich in fresh oxygen breathed out by the woodland, have been chosen for ritual by druids, pagans, and witches for thousands of years. Within our blood, there are cells whose main function is to carry oxygen to the vital organs. In addition to distributing the vital life force around the body, blood, in magical terms, also absorbs the emotional energy every time it passes through the heart. To this very day, tree groves are chosen by secret societies to perform sacrificial rituals. At Bohemian Grove in California, initiates gather in a tree grove and witness a ceremony where the spirit of compassion or care is symbolically cremated and sacrificed to a god who takes the form of an owl. In 2001, evidence began to appear from medical experts which suggests that our heart can absorb and remember part of our personality. It is as though the life force pumping in our blood and the emotional states we experience leave an indelible spiritual hallmark in the heart. Nexus magazine recently published a series of articles about the phenomena known as organ memory. Several doctors and patients have testified that some personality traits of a heart donor manifest in the character of the recipient. After receiving the heart of a young woman, a male patient could sing and knit and sew in exactly the same way as the deaf donor. It was as if the woman's spirit, as well as her heart, had been transplanted into the man. This phenomena has caused several transplant surgeons to question their purely mechanical attitude towards the human heart. The heart contains elements of one's own personality, and your blood gushes through your heart at a faster rate when sexually, emotionally, and, as we shall soon see, magically excited. Ancient cultures, such as Judaism, were up to their armpits in blood. Their temples had channels cut into the stones where gallons of blood from animals, men, women, and yes, even children would flow and congeal amongst the peasants who paid a few pennies in lieu of slicing the throat of the sacrificial victim themselves. Blood rituals have been performed worldwide since the dawn of time, and even to this day is reenacted in symbolic form via the Catholic Mass of eating and drinking the so-called body of Christ. Black magicians who advocate blood sacrifice, such as Aleister Crowley, who recommended that a 9-year-old child of above average intelligence made the ideal sacrificial candidate, are well aware of the esoteric qualities of blood and the life force. Hot blood, freshly drained from a living creature, which has recently passed through the emotionally animated arteries of the heart, actually contains a concentration of the sacred Chi life force. According to black magicians such as Aleister Crowley and Eliphas Levi, the last beat of the heart, the last breath of the victim, carry the soul into the spirit world.
Almighty and all-powerful set, dark darkness, king of death, I pledge this night to thee. No, Richard, no! Makata! Welcome to our circle. What have you done to my baby?
does not hear you. In a state of deep hypnosis.
In the name of God, you dare not!
Scarcely in the name of God, Monsieur le Duc.
What's he going to do with me? Look.
Take me instead, Father.
You fool, Monsieur le Duc. Your soul in preference to that of an unstained child.
What are you talking about?
Yes. The transference of soul. That of your child, or that of planet?
No!
Now, if our two remaining guests will permit, we may proceed. Almighty and all-powerful Saint, Father of darkness, King of death, I pledge this knife to thee, do thy work, and be thy servant.
Those words you said before. Say them again.
I cannot.
You must. My baby's going to die if you don't. You must speak those words again.
The bride of chaos! The bride of chaos! The rider upon the beast! The rider upon the beast!
With this knife, do I draw out the blood, which is thy life.
This form of black magic circumvents the natural path of the victim's soul, which would normally rise into a higher vibratory state and take up residence in the spirit world. Instead, the life force is diverted into the body of the magician or absorbed by a demon. Once the demon has spiritually absorbed the life force of the sacrificial victim, the magician will often ask the spirit to divulge information about the past, present, or future. The shape and color of the heart would often be studied for divination. And hundreds of temples around the world, from the Himalayas to the Mediterranean, were set up to divine information from spirits. These temple sites became known as oracles. The so-called oracles were female or androgynous psychics, usually bred from birth for their clairvoyant powers. Oracles would spend most of their time floating in underground pools, engaged in permanent trance, receiving visions directly from the spirit world.